Well, I'm not sure about the weather, but I'm sure he's going to dominate the figure aisles. Here's a look at the new Super7 G.I. Joe Ultimates, Destro, weapons supplier. His beryllium steel mask and deep V-to-the-waist jumpsuit do nothing to hide Destro's fiendishly opportunistic nature or cold-blooded desire for power. This made-to-order 7-inch fully articulated G.I. Joe Ultimates figure of Destro comes with interchangeable heads and hands, as well as over a dozen additional weapons and accessories. They say that knowing is half the battle, but you already know you want the Destro figure, so there's no need to battle against your urge to add this one to your collection. The good news is, you don't have to deal with Destro if you're looking to get this figure for yourself. In fact, I did get Destro the arms dealer as well as all the rest of Wave 2's G.I. Joe Ultimate figures over on Entertainment Earth's website. If you guys are interested and would like to get this one for yourself, as well as the already looked at Flint and all the future figures, the Lady J and the Baroness, I'll put the links down below in the video description. In the meantime, though, let's grab the tape measure and just see how tall Destro stands. Quite impressively, the figure's at 7 inches in height. You can see that for yourself. Or the figure's going to be about 18 centimeters in height. And comparing him to his Cobra colleagues, here's what the figure looks like with Cobra Commander. Now, I feel in this case, Destro should still have been taller than what we get represented here in plastic. He probably should be maybe like half a head taller. But though when you compare him with the Bat, he's actually about the same size as the Bat, which I still don't think is right. Destro should be a little bit taller than what we get here. Other figures we can also bring in for comparisons. The recently looked at Flint, who also shares the same wave as Destro. Here's what the figure also looks like with Snake Eyes, and another fellow colleague of the arena of sports. Here's what he also looks like with Wave 1's Duke. I will say, though, Destro does pretty good for himself when it comes to the accessories, which usually goes without saying when we look at these G.I. Joe Ultimate figures that Super7 are churning out. If you did want to revert, say, Destro back to the way he looks in his original 80s toy, the figure comes included with his gauntlet missiles. These are silver banded bracelets that fit basically over his existing forearms. In the cartoon, he was prone to normally not having these, but the figure, if you did want to have him displayed, though, in the actual toy, and especially the original package artwork, he had the grenades on the one side, then the missiles on the other. Simply just take the figure as he is right now, take the bands, and you just fit them over top of his forearms. They don't sit super tight, and every once in a while you are moving the figure's arms, I find these are prone to falling off. You can then take, of course, the grenades and fit them then on the other side. If you don't like the look of grenades, you can easily just remove those and replace them with another pair, or another set of 3 at least, of missiles, so you can actually have Destro with them on either side of the figure's body. I think there was an episode or so that Destro actually had one firing missile on one of his gauntlets. That doesn't get released with this figure. So I'm glad to see that they actually came include that. And actually, while we're on the topic of this, I'm going to put these back onto Destro. Speaking of the original package artwork, one thing I really wish that the figure could have come included with is the blaster that he's wielding in that package. He does come with weapons, sure, but he doesn't come with that specific weapon, that oversized one that had the little sight on the top of it. Figure doesn't come included with it, which is a bit strange. I really think if they were going to go the mile of actually adding those extra gauntlets, those extra weapons were all, again, throwbacks to the original toy. I don't know why, again, they didn't come include with a weapon for him to wield to be based on that packaging. Anyways, though, let's go ahead and remove these for right now. The figure also comes included with, like I said, a series of weapons. Well, I guess we can kind of look at these now individually. He comes with 3 variations. I'm going to grab these all individually. He comes with 3 variations of pistol. He comes with this one, looks very more like the cartoon. He comes with this one, kind of has more of a realistic approach. And then he also comes with this one, which is my favorite of the 3. They all have been handled here in a very dark plastic, dark gray plastic, and I do really like the look of these. But of the 3 that are provided, at least of the smaller size, I'm just going to try to hold up all 3 of them so you guys can actually see. This one here is my favorite. And again, it's not quite close to the one that we actually get in the packaging, but at least it's one I'm going to be displaying with Destro. I really like the look of this one quite a lot. The figure also comes included with, I believe this is the Molecular Reducer Enlarger Gun. something that's a throwback or reference at least to one of the episodes. It's been painted here very nicely in a very dark silver, where of course the stock on the back and the handle below have been kind of given more of a lighter beige color. Really like the look of that. Not something I'll be displaying with the figure, but again, I appreciate the fact that they throw these little nods in there. The figure has, if you prefer a little more larger firepower, a big giant rocket launcher. Some would even call this a bazooka. And while firing at not anything right at the moment, the figure also at least comes included with a missile. Just make sure you don't point it in your direction. The coloring of the missile is sort of more of a rosier purple. And then again, you got a little dark black on the end of the cap there. This does just fit on the end of the rocket launcher. You just slide that down in place. And there is an actual exit point here on the back, but there's nothing really to fire off the missile. It doesn't really work that way, so you have to kind of just lean it forward. I mean, I almost feel as if this is a bit of a waste of plastic, because if you were to, say, put this inside, I guess you could have it just hanging out just the end of it, almost as if he's looking like he's firing. But unless you're really adding some exhaust port on the back of the missile, if you hide it inside the rocket launcher, as I'm doing right now, you'd be none the wiser to even think that it came included with it in the first place. I almost feel like they should have used this plastic to maybe instead create the gun that he came included with again, that original 80s packaging. That's just my own personal opinion. Move those all to the side. The figure also comes included with a pair of binoculars. The binoculars mostly done here in blue. There's a little bit more of a lighter blue on both the sides. So the side, I guess, he's looking out of this. Well, the side he's looking in. I guess the side he's looking out. Really nice little pair of binoculars. Something very simple, nothing overly complex. He does have, of course, hands for all of these, by the way. We're going to talk more about the hands in a second, but he does have, obviously, hands for specifically holding one accessory over the others. The figure also comes included. I love this touch. The figure comes first of all with a hand sander. This is actually what he uses to kind of shine up his chrome dome in the series. This is again something that he can hold in his hand. You have to kind of find the proper hand to do it. This is the kind of, I find, the best hand for it. Sort of just fit the hand over the sander. It doesn't honestly fit as well as I maybe would have hoped, but you can have him holding the sander. Kind of like that. You may also even want to have this resting against his head. So it looks like, of course, Destro's shining up his head like he does in the series. This is a nice included touch. The figure comes included with a joystick. I consider this more the joystick from the Arena of Sports episode, where, of course, him and Cobra Commander are gambling as to who the victor is going to be. The joystick seems like it's a little tilted to the one side. I mean, again, it doesn't really necessarily move. I thought, for example, there may have been some articulation to it, kind of like the way it looks like it's a little bit broken up down below here. But I think it's all one piece, even though, like, looking at it, it almost looks like it should be able to move. He does also have one hand, to go back quickly to his hands. He has one hand for a second that I thought was there for holding the pistol, but you'll notice right away that it doesn't go all the way to the bottom of it. Of course, normally you would fit a handle of a gun in there, but there's no way to be able to do that. So I think this specific hand is actually there in place to hold the end of the joystick. Kind of like that. So if you want to have the figure displayed, which I think I'm actually leaning towards more, having the figure displayed with the joystick in his hand and maybe one of the other included heads. I'm probably going to be going that route. I guess while we are on the topic of, no, actually we'll get to the hands in a second. The figure also comes included with his ancestral mask. The old silver mask that he has in a flashback episode. I believe that was the episode with Lady J. He has, again, like really nicely replicated. It's a fairly dark kind of gunmetal plastic. And this does fit really essentially over his existing head. Just like that. You kind of have to have it obviously low enough so that Destro can actually see where he's going. And for me, I think it's a throwaway accessories. I would never find myself ever really wanting to display it with him. But at least I appreciate the fact that Super 7 cover off all the territory when it comes to things that Destro potentially could come included with. Okay, before we get to his heads, let's have a look at the various hands that he comes included with. So he comes included with this hand, which again, judging by the size of the grip, I think would be more intended for like the hand sander. People want to call it hand sanitizer. I guess really the best thing is probably just to have the thumb fitting around the side of it and sort of have his fingers on the other side. But it really doesn't, honestly, as you can see, it really doesn't hold it as well as maybe it could. The figure also comes included with, again, like the already looked at hand that's, I'm guessing, more designed to hold the end of the joystick, just by the way you can see, like, either that or he's trying to pinch some of maybe he's trying to pinch Cobra Commander's head from a distance. I'm pinching your head. I'm pinching your head. The figure also comes included with a couple of gripping hands, suitable for holding, of course, the pistols. And then he also comes included with a couple of pointing hands. Omitted, though, after all, we've been talking about pistols and all, the figure doesn't come included with any trigger-firing fingers. I guess you could, for all the intents and purposes, you could probably use these hands, for example, for holding the guns. But the thing about it, though, is even like this hand is way too small of a grip. You really have to fight. And even to get that on there, it never really looks like he's properly holding the trigger unless you kind of have to tuck the finger in there. It kind of looks like he's actually more resting his hand against the gun, not actually planning to fire it off. So those are the hands that he comes included with. Let's slide those, of course, out of the way as well. And then the figure comes with various head sculpts. Looking at first the defaulted head, a neutral expression Destro, which looks fine. I mean, really would be a go-to for me, at least when it comes to displaying the figure. But he also comes included with this one. And I really like the look of the laughing Destro myself. I really don't know how a man with a steel mask would be able to even express emotions, but this one does have his eyes closed and it looks like he's actually laughing jovially. The figure also comes included with a slightly more angrier expression than we get when we start with. So again, like you've got the eyebrows a little bit more furrowed, and you got the mouth in this case actually open as well. And then the last of the heads, well, again, for me is never going to be one I'm going to display the figure. I still appreciate the fact that Super 7 includes the lava splattered head sculpt, which he has in an episode. The lava basically splatters across Destro's head, leaving behind basically what we see right now. It almost looks like he's gotten into a candy accident and had caramel melted all across the front of his face. Again, to change out any one of the heads, if you aren't really keen on this one, for example, you simply just hold on to the torso. Destro has one other thing I did want to talk about, but I'll hold on doing it in a second. Let me just put on, say, for example, right now, the laughing head. And if you're having any tough time to do this, by the way, putting the heads on, that is, you can always heat the heads in hot water, or you can also use the hairdryer trick. Because I find that some of these heads, you can see like the size of the ball joint, you can see the size of the hole that needs to go in, and it doesn't look like it really fits on properly unless you put a little bit of pressure on it, or again, you use, there we go, you use a little bit of hot water or hairdryer. So again, I really like this one. I like the laughing Destro myself. Here's one thing I did want to talk about when it comes to this figure. While I like the look of Destro, from the way he was created, he has this strange rattling to him, and I can't quite place what exactly is rattling to him. It's almost like there's something inside the cavity of his body causing the rattle to exist. Now, this is not a character that's known for rattling in the cartoon. That would be easy to write off, because obviously they would have just included that as a feature. But again, I don't understand why Destro's rattling. There's nothing really on him that seems broken. Not his arms, not his elbows, certainly not his head or his ball joint. And yet the figure rattles for some strange reason. Don't really know what that is. If you have picked up this figure for yourself, let me know down below in the comments section if you've had a similar rattling. Anyways, looking at the head sculpt, here's where it could be torn by fandom. If this is a line that's based originally or again around the cartoon, I feel like Destro's head sculpt is a little too silver. Now here, of course, you're never going to really please all the fans all the time. For me, myself, I would have preferred Destro if he had had more of a matte finished paint job, where, again, he only would have had a little bit of reflection on the side of his head. In the cartoon, he isn't actually silver like this. He's actually more a matte light gray. The same rule applies basically for his gauntlets and his arms. Like, he should have more of a light gray. He should not be metallic like this. Although the original toy does have him like this, so obviously it was probably hard on Super 7's part to kind of meet somewhere in the middle. A very similar argument to like the Silverhawks, for example. Do you base it on more the toy, or do you base it more on the cartoon? He looks like he does from the cartoon. I just don't think the chrome myself, as my own personal opinion, works as well on the figure, that I would have preferred a more matte gray instead. That's just, again, my own personal opinion. The coloring of him, though, other than that, it looks really quite good. He's got, of course, the very Cobra designed kind of collar piece that he has in a very bright red. Overlooking, of course, the fact that the figure does have a rattling feature. The inside of his chest, of course, he has that more lighter yellowing color, and he's got the little necklace piece that he also has in the cartoon as well. Now, with the gauntlets also left off, he has just the regular silver gauntlets for the forearm areas and matching hands that go along with that as well. I did notice like the hands in some of the cases seem really loose. And that may not always be the case. Like this side is okay. But this side, for some reason, this one hand, I might have to maybe add a little bit of something to thicken up the joint. It is a little looser than I would really like. He's got the banding there on the side of his leg like he does in the cartoon. And again, down below here, he has, again, cartoon colors when it comes to his boots. This really is the color that would have worked well for up here if it was maybe a shade or two lighter about this color, though, this color scheme. And the figure does have also pegholes in the undersides of his feet, although he does not utilize a display stand because Super 7 do not include them with their figures. For the figure's articulation, starting once again with his head, it rotates back and forth, but for the obvious reasons, a very high collar. You can't rotate Destro's head all the way around. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You can have the head looking up only by a little bit, and you have the head only looking down. It's like I'm barely doing anything with it, but that's to the furthest range of what you can actually do with Destro's head. The arms do come out a lot easier. There's a little bit more give to those. You can bring the arms out at 90 degrees. You can also as well rotate them all the way around on both the sides. Figure has a bicep swivel, only possessing a sad single hinge in the elbow, but at least it allows the forearm to rotate back and forth. The hands, of course, rotate all the way around and hinging back and forth. The figure's upper torso seems to still be on a ball joint, despite the limitations that he has. He hasn't, for example, like the Duke, like the Snake Eyes, like even Cobra Commander, he doesn't seem to have a crunch joint, simply just because I'm sure they didn't want to put it in there to break this part of the mold up. So unfortunately, while he doesn't have a crunch, he still has what works as sort of a ball joint. It kind of feels like you can rotate it sort of the same fashion. You can split the legs out. Once again, they are using ball joint hinges on the inside. You can take the legs and move them forward. You can move them back. Destro has one of those cases where there's a very obvious gap right here between his thigh and where his waist would be. There's a very obvious divide. There's a gap space in between. I keep feeling as if I can bring them further up, but I can't. I might have had also the same problem with the Lino toy version, also released by Super7, where he had a very noticeable gap, and I couldn't bring his leg up any further than what he is right now. If I was to say bring in Cobra Commander had it, but he doesn't have it to the level that Destro has. Still, though, I guess it does allow the figure's leg to split out like this. Of course, you can bring him forward and bring him back. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh. Still only possessing a single hinge in the knee, but it allows at least the lower leg. I still say this. It rotates the lower leg, but that's not really the case. I'm so used to always saying like a figure can also rotate down below where the knees also hinge, but in this case, it's not the case. You only get the single hinge and that's all. Boots at least go up and down this way, and you can also rock Destro's boots back and forth as well, as the figure possesses an ankle pivot. All in all, it's good looking Destro. I'm just not sure why he's rattling though. Why does the figure have to rattle when there doesn't seem to be anything broken about him at all? And once again, here is what he looks like with the Cobra Commander. Nice looking figures. Now, again, the hard part, though, is when you're looking at a toy line like this, is where do you say that he's more like the cartoon than he is the action figure, or vice versa? I feel like in this case, like I had mentioned with Cobra Commander should have had the little squiggle on the side of his front face dome. And I feel like with Destro should not have relied on chrome finish. Maybe it worked as well if they wanted to make this guy as a toy version, but if you did want to make him like the cartoon, which I'm guessing he's more supposed to be like, I would have liked myself, again, my own personal opinion, take it with a grain of salt, I would have preferred if they had rather instead made the arms, anything that's silver on this guy, I would have made instead more of a light matte gray, making him closer to the way that he looks in the cartoon. Wrapping up the review here of Destro, I've got the figure displayed with joystick in his hand, I'm sure engaging in some sort of wager with the dear Commander in the arena of sports, much to the chagrin, I'm sure, of Snake Eyes and Duke. The thing I do like about the figure is the fact that he looks like the cartoon. The thing that I'm kind of a little on the fence about is the way they've actually colored the figure. Because if you are going to be basing the character off the cartoon, which I'm gotta think that they have, why would they have colored him chrome? It's clearly a case where they still wanted to make a nod to the original toy, but I think if you did want to make this guy look like he did in the cartoon, the same similar sort of complaint I had for Cobra Commander, I would have done away with altogether the chrome, and instead rather I would have made the head sculpt and the arms a more lighter gray with a little squiggle across the side of his forehead. That's what I would have done. Now I know some people generally would have just preferred to have Destro with the shinier head sculpt, so at least you get that. But I do wish that they could have said to themselves, okay, if we ever plan to release Destro similar in the way we've now done things with the Thundercats, release one that's very much Destro like he looked in the cartoon with the lighter gray dome, and then not release later on a toy version of Destro that then could have then used the gauntlet bracelets that would have had the missiles and the grenades, and maybe packed that along with that figure, and maybe used the plastic instead, saved aside for maybe some accessories that were relative more to the cartoon. It's my own honest opinion. Other than that, though, I do really like the look of Destro. I can't quite put my finger on, though, what's exactly rattling about him. I've picked him up a couple of times. I mean, short of me actually just disassembling the figure. And I mean, but judging by the way everything looks seamed on this guy, I don't think it's a simple case like the original G.I. Joes where I'd be able to unscrew the back of their torsos and the whole thing literally just falls apart. Without that being able to be the case, I don't have, again, any ideas as to why the figure is exactly rattling. But if you have picked up the chance, or you have had a chance to pick up Destro for yourself, Let me know down below in the comments section if your figure is also rattling. If you guys are interested to get this one, as well as the Flint that we've looked at from Wave 2, or all of Wave 1, consisting of Cobra Commander, the Bat, Snake Eyes, and Duke, they are available as of right now over on Entertainment Earth's website. So again, if you guys are interested and haven't had any luck to find these, you can click the links down below in the video description. If you guys enjoyed this video, want to hit it with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you're still on board to see Lady J, and of course, we're also going to be looking at the Baroness. I'm not sure which order I'm going to do. Maybe I'll look at Baroness next, and I'll save Lady J for last. But yeah, if you want to make sure that you're staying tuned and you're in the know all the time, hit that subscribe button down below, and you're also turning on the bell notification, so you're going to get those reminders whenever new videos pop. Popping up, speaking of which, at the very end of this video will be a playlist of other things I've looked at from Super 7. That is also including the Thundercats, the Silverhawks, the Ren and Stimpy. I think World's Worst was something also I did look at. All the kind of stuff that if you love Super 7, check out that playlist that's popping up at the very end of this video. And of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.